Hi, I'm Frank Masiosi, and I'm here today with former Mayor Jordan Glatt. And this is one of 6 in a series of interviews of the Summit candidates for Common Council. And we are here today with Beth Little. Welcome, Beth.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
So the format will be, we will ask questions about various issues affecting Summit, and we'll alternate, and you can tell us and the viewers your thoughts on the various issues.
That sounds great.
Okay. Jordan, you want to kick it off?
Sure. First, thanks for running. You're trying to sign on to a pretty grueling job. So what caused you to raise your hand and run for council?
Well, the short answer is that I really love Summit. My husband Bill and I moved to Summit 15 years ago, and at that point I had just left my career as a child abuse prosecutor. So I was really looking to become meaningfully involved in the community, and I found Summit was a really great place to do that. And so I jumped right in. For the last 15 years, I've been a full-time parent and community volunteer. With 4 kids, I've been really involved in the schools and with sports teams, but also with a lot of the great community organizations that we have here, like the Summit Educational Foundation, Santa Claus Shop, The Connection. So I've been able to be involved in all these organizations that really touch a lot of Summit and a lot of different people in Summit, both geographically and demographically. So I have a lot of relationships that reach across Summit, and I felt like this was a natural next step to be able to take those relationships and be able to represent a lot of different voices and a lot of different people in Summit that aren't necessarily well represented now in council.
Great.
Beth, when we open the newspapers and read about what's going on at a national level, we see some pretty pronounced differences between Republicans and Democrats. What do you see as the difference between Republicans and Democrats here at the local level in Summit?
That's a really great question. I'm not sure that I do see a lot of large differences between the Democrats and the Republicans here on the local level. I think when you start talking about local issues, those national kind of platforms fall away a little bit. These aren't new issues that we're facing here in Summit. We have a pretty great town, and the things that come up in these local elections are not new and novel. They're things like our downtown, our schools, taxes. So it's really in the approach that the different candidates have. So I think in the local level, you're more looking at the character and the temperament of the different candidates and seeing how they're going to approach these problems.
Okay.
Rather than a national platform. I don't think there's a Republican and Democratic way to have great schools. So I think it's more looking at the individual candidates and their personalities.
Okay.
Great. On the local level, one of the big issues facing Summit is all-day kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
What are your views on that?
So I've thought a lot about this issue, and I've heard a lot about it from people as I walk around town and meet residents. And I've been involved in the schools very heavily, for the last 15 years. So it's an issue that I am familiar with, and I'm familiar with the history of the full-day kindergarten program. And the tuition-based system that we have now was put in place as a pilot program, and for great intentions to see if we could, see what the demand was for full-day kindergarten and see what as a community, what the appetite was for doing this. And so it's now we know the answer to that. The demand is quite high. And over the years since it's been instituted, the demand has grown more and more to the point now where a majority of our children in Summit are choosing to pay the tuition price for full-day kindergarten. And that raises a problem for me because at this point we're hearing that the kids that aren't going to full-day kindergarten, a lot of them are going because their parents can't afford the tuition. And they can't even enter the lottery to get the full-day program because they can't afford the tuition if they should win the lottery. And for me, that poses a problem that as a community, I don't believe that we want to have public school programs that some children don't have access to based on their family's income. So I think at this point, we haven't looked at this issue as a community for quite a few years, and things have changed. The demographics in our schools have changed, the Common Core standards have changed, and clearly the demand for the full-day kindergarten program keeps increasing. So I think it's time for us to look at this issue again as a community. So I would love for the Board of Education to hold some community-wide town halls and see what we want to do with this. But we need to look at and see if we can provide a full-day kindergarten program to everyone, or at least revisit the fee structure and make them more accessible to more families. Because right now children are being shut out of access to the full-day program based on family income, and I just think that that's not where we want to be.
Great.
There's a lot of talk around the country about the idea of sanctuary cities. Kind of a two-part question. Do you think Summit should become a sanctuary city, and what, if anything, should be done about residents who are undocumented?
That's a difficult question. It's a really thorny question with a lot of different issues on all sides. I don't believe that Summit should be a sanctuary city, and part of the reason is that I don't think, I think designating yourself as a sanctuary city kind of gives an indication to ICE and to Border Patrol that maybe there's an issue here that they need to look at and that they need to be focused on. And I don't think that Summit is seen as a city where that needs to happen right now. I think that we really need to look at the kids that came here and the Dreamer population, but these are national issues more. And it needs to be, not things that our council would necessarily focus on. But as far as the local level, I would not be in favor of designating Summit as a sanctuary city.
Okay.
Great. I'm blind without these, but
Well, they look good.
every candidate talks about improving the downtown. What would you do that is not currently being done to help the downtown merchants?
I put out a position paper on this very topic, so I have given it a lot of thought, and I did it in conjunction with the other Democratic candidates, but something that I've been really looking into and researching for a long time. And it's one of the other big reasons I got into this race, because as a full-time parent and community volunteer, I'm in the downtown every day. I eat downtown, shop downtown, use the organizations. I'm full-time in our downtown using it. So it's something I've given a lot of thought to. So one of the big things that I would like to see happen right away, which is no cost, is that I would designate one of the committees on council as an economic development committee, so that we would have a mechanism on council to look proactively at zoning, at tax policy, at ordinances that support business-friendly practices in our downtown, and make sure that we have an environment where businesses that are going to be successful in Summit can thrive and are attracted to come here. That's a win-win for everyone. We have successful businesses and they're making income, then we have higher tax revenues coming in that are going to support our commercial tax base. Some of the other things I would be in favor of is streamlining some of the permitting process. We've seen a little bit of that with putting the permitting processes online and being able to see what's happening. I think there's ways to streamline it further. If you have a building that's already permitted for use as a restaurant, then a new restaurant coming in maybe could start somewhere further along in that permitting process, and there's ways to streamline that to attract new businesses. But what I'd really like to see council do is be a lot more proactive in looking to make sure that we have the correct zoning and tax and policies that are going to support businesses in our community.
Great.
Question on taxes.
Yes.
When I was on council, roughly half the budget was devoted to the schools, and it's about the same today, maybe 52%. And the other half was 50-50, the city and the county, so it's 25% each, roughly. Today, the county is up to about 29%, and the city is down to about 21%. So one's been moving, they've been moving in opposite directions. What would you do about the problem with the county? Many have tried, and some with limited success.
Yes.
What would you do?
Well, I think everyone would like to see us have lower county tax, a lower proportion of our taxes going to the county. But as the city council, there's, we don't have the ability to force that issue. We can work with the county. So I'd like to see us continue to do that. I think Mayor Radis has taken that approach, and it's been somewhat more successful than policies have been in the past, and we've been getting more money back from the county to Summit. We have a grant to the new community center for the seniors. We have the county funding the returfing of Glenside Field, which is an expensive project, and we were able to finalize the lease on the transfer station. So I think working with the county is a great strategy. I would say that although I'm in favor of collaboration, I'm also, as a former prosecutor, I'm also not afraid to stand up and fight, on behalf of my community and on behalf of our citizens. So to the extent that the county is doing things I don't agree with, I'm not going to be shy about letting them know and, standing up for the citizens of Summit. But the approach that seems to work better with the county is to work collaboratively with them to get as much of that money back to Summit as possible.
Summit is constantly talking about redevelopment.
Yes.
What is your thoughts about areas that, if any, that should be redeveloped, and to what benefit?
So that's a really interesting project and one of the areas that I've been looking into since I've started running. And the area that I think is the most amenable to redevelopment is the Broad Street corridor, where we have a number of city-owned properties and especially city-owned parking lots that are just single open parking lots. So I think that's an area that really could benefit from redevelopment and be used to a greater benefit than it's being used now. And what I would love to see us do in that area is have multi-use development and have some development that would have entertainment or retail on the first floor, some housing, and maybe some parking to address some of the parking issues, so that it would be a better use of that space and bring in more revenue. And again, shore up our commercial tax base. So I think that could be a great project, and I'm really looking forward to working on that and figuring out those issues if elected.
Great.
As you prioritize, what would you say is the biggest thing in Summit that needs to be fixed?
I think it really is our downtown. I think that like many of us, Bill and I moved to this community because we had great schools and the downtown was wonderful and the commute into the city was easy for him to, as a commuter. Our schools are still doing great and they're wonderful. The commute is still the same as it was, but the downtown is under increasing pressure from e-commerce and from the mall and from other outside factors. So I think, and that's where council can really make a difference. And like I said before, I think that council can be just a lot more proactive in looking at some of these issues and supporting our downtown businesses.
So one of the most important jobs as a council person is voting on the city budget. What can you identify any new revenue sources, and how would you attack the city budget?
Well, the revenue sources, I think I've addressed. I think the greatest opportunity for us to increase revenue sources is in our downtown businesses and in our redevelopment. An economic development committee on council wouldn't only look at downtown, it would also look at other commercial revenue sources and other businesses that could come into other parts of Summit as well. So I would focus my attention on strengthening our commercial tax base. Like I said, it's a win-win for everyone. A vibrant downtown is great for residents in terms of town quality, but having successful businesses that are bringing in high revenues also means higher tax revenue as well. And shoring up our commercial tax bases means that they're taking up a bigger piece of the pie so that our slice of the residential tax pie goes down. So that's where I would like to focus my energy.
And let me just follow through a little bit on that. What
Yep.
about on the expense side?
On the expense side, I think we need to keep careful eye on our school budgets, and that we really need to be very thoughtful about our fiscal spending and look to the future when making fiscal spending decisions. I've seen on council that sometimes things just come up and are voted on and decided on without thinking the 3 steps ahead and doing the work that takes to look what is going to be our parking policy in the future, what is our redevelopment strategy in the future, so that you're making decisions not only for today, but decisions that are going to be meaningful and make sense in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now too. So just being very thoughtful. A lot of the organizations I've been involved with have something in common. That's that their needs are greater than their available funds. So I've been spending the last 15 years involved with organizations making decisions about how to take a small amount of money and make the greatest impact possible and benefit the most people possible. And I would take that same approach to city budgets and make sure that our fiscal spending is thoughtful and reasonable and has the greatest impact for the greatest number of residents.
We've had recently, but really on a continuing basis, auto thefts. You know, we're right near Route 24. It's very easy for somebody who steals a car to get on Route 24 and be out of here in no time. And there have been some home break-ins as well. How would you address that issue?
You know, I think we have a really tremendous police department here in Summit, and I come from a law enforcement background and have, you know, my career prior to moving to Summit was as a prosecutor. And so I've worked with a lot of police departments, and we have a really tremendous police department, an incredible police chief and Chief Weck. You know, there's a couple ways to address the problem. One is enforcement and having more police officers you know, on the streets and dealing with these issues, and I think they've been really effective in doing that. The other is education. And I know on the car theft issue that most, if not all of the car thefts were, you know, involved keys left in the car.
Yep.
And we should, you know, it's great that in Summit we feel safe and that we feel like we can do that, but it may not be the best way to keep your car from being stolen. So I'd love to see more education about that and residents taking that step to protect themselves as well, because the police department can only be at, you know, so many places at so many times.
So another segment of our population that sometimes gets forgotten about is our seniors.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see that we could do to make Summit more senior friendly?
Yeah, I've had some experience working with the senior population through The Connection, which I think is an amazing organization in Summit that really addresses a lot of senior needs. And I think that one of the ways is to, you know, we need to keep our residential taxes at a level where seniors can stay in Summit and stay here and remain, you know, a vibrant part of our community. I think that's one of the ways. That's one of the reasons that Summit is so great, is that we do have a very diverse community in so many ways, and seniors are a big part of that. So I would definitely be looking at seniors and making policy decisions and making decisions about spending and other things, and making sure that segment of the population is well represented.
We have less than a minute before your 2-minute wrap-up.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about your personal characteristics that you feel are important for this job?
Well, as I said, I have a background as a child abuse prosecutor. I went into that field because I have a desire to make my community better and to you know, use my abilities and my experience and my education to make a difference in my community. And I did that as a career, and I've done that ever since I've come to Summit. So I think that I'm thoughtful. I look at issues from many different sides. I have many relationships.
Transition as quickly as you can
in the community, and I care about the people in Summit.
Okay, thanks. And for your 2-minute wrap-up, take a look at the camera and tell the folks whatever you like.
I have 15 years of experience working in different community organizations in Summit and as a full-time parent. And I want to bring those relationships and those different viewpoints to council to represent all of Summit and some of the people that aren't currently represented well on that council. I also have a background as a prosecutor, and that background has given me the ability to research issues carefully, to articulate my positions, and to fight for what I believe in and for the people of Summit. I will represent you on council the same way I have run this race, with honesty and integrity, with careful listening and thoughtful communication, and a careful approach to the issues that affect all of us here in Summit. Thank you.